Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This teleconference is a follow-up to two press releases distributed earlier today, one from the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl in San Francisco, the other from the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. Both releases announced their conference partnerships beginning in 2014. There are four guests on our panel today: Commissioner Jim Delany from the Big Ten Conference, Commissioner Larry Scott from the Pac-12 Conference, Gary Cavalli, Executive Director of the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl in San Francisco, and Bruce Binkowski, Executive Director for the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. We're going to begin the teleconference by hearing opening statements from each of the four on the panel. At the conclusion of the opening statements, they'll then take questions from the media, and we ask that all questions stay on today's topic. So with that, we will start with Commissioner Jim Delany from the Big Ten Conference.
Thank you very much. My comments will be brief. I can just tell you that our universities, our coaches, our players, and our everybody associated with football in the Big Ten is excited about these two new relationships. One is an older one in the sense that we've been to the Holiday Bowl, I think, for nine or 10 times over the years, and we're really excited to be going back. And then be able to go to San Francisco and to play in the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl is a wonderful opportunity for us, a new stadium, a great part of California, and then to be able to play in both games against our longtime partners, the Pac-12 Conference, makes it even more special. We're in a little bit of a new world with the college football playoff, and the Rose Bowl has its part to play in that structure. And these games provide our teams great opportunities in a great part of the country, an area rich with Big Ten alums, but also with great high school players. And so between the partners at the Bowls, the partners at the Pac-12, and the alums and great young high school players, we think this is a real series of winning partnerships and combinations. So we're very excited about today's announcement.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Delany. And now we'll hear from Commissioner Larry Scott from the Pac-12 Conference.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be on today's call to celebrate the extension of important partnerships for the Pac-12 Conference. Both the Holiday Bowl and the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl are relationships that the Pac-12 has enjoyed for some time, very successful partnerships and arrangements that we've had, and we're delighted to be extending with new beginnings, with new partnerships with the Big Ten Conference in each case. Our objective going into this next round of bowls was to build upon the partnerships that we've had. Generally speaking, we felt that we've had great bowl arrangements, great partnerships in the right markets for our teams, for our fans. So we looked at this process as one of optimizing our bowl arrangements going forward. And in each of the Holiday Bowl and Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl case, we feel like we've done that. Holiday Bowl with their tremendous tradition, going back to a Pac-12 Big Ten partnership there, and the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl that's grown over the years and will really take a big leap forward when they move into Levi's Stadium, partnership with the San Francisco 49ers, obviously right smack in the middle of Pac-12 territory, great central market for our schools. We're delighted. So both these arrangements are a very nice step forward for us, and of course we're also very happy to deepen the already very good relationship that we've got with the Big Ten Conference. We've looked for opportunities to play each other more, and couldn't think of a better way than through two prestigious bowl arrangements on the West Coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Scott. And now we will hear from Gary Cavalli, the Executive Director of the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl.
Thank you, Mark. First of all, I want to thank both Commissioner Delany and Commissioner Scott for support of our game. We're tremendously proud and honored to be affiliated with these two great conferences, and we think that these partnerships will be a win-win for everybody involved. I also want to thank Kevin Weiberg, the Deputy Commissioner of the Pac-12, and Mark Rudner, the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Ten, for their help fairness and their integrity throughout the negotiating process. Finally, I want to congratulate our friends at the Holiday Bowl. I want to thank Bruce and his staff. They've served as mentors to us. We've always looked up to them. We're still going to be looking up to them a little bit from a selection standpoint, but the distance won't be as far as it's been in the past. We're very excited to today officially announce 6-year agreements that will establish a partnership with the Big Ten and also improve our selection rights in the Pac-12. Earlier this year, as you know, we entered into an agreement with the Santa Clara Stadium Authority and the San Francisco 49ers to move our game to the team's new Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, which is going to be the site of the 2016 Super Bowl. The college football landscape has changed dramatically over the past year because of the new postseason structure with a playoff and all the changes in conference realignment. So every postseason game, all of us have had to evaluate our position and determine the best plan for the future. Our objective, quite simply, was to elevate the game. The first step was moving to the new state-of-the-art venue in Santa Clara, and the next step was creating a more compelling matchup. And fortunately, we've been able to do that by attracting the Big Ten and by moving up in the Pac-12. So it's a great day for everybody. We have a lot to be thankful for and a lot to look forward to.
Thank you very much, Gary. And lastly, we'll hear from Bruce Binkowski, the Executive Director of the Holiday Bowl in San Diego.
Thank you, Mark. On behalf of the Holiday Bowl Board of Directors and all of our hardworking volunteers, I'd like to echo what Gary said and thank Commissioner Scott and Commissioner Delany and their staffs for working with us to put together this new and exciting matchup. If you look at it, 2 great conferences, great traditions, very loyal fans. And I'd like to remind everybody on the call, it's San Diego in December. Sunshine, beaches, golf courses, attractions, our famous Holiday Bowl hospitality, and, of course, our history as America's most exciting bowl game. This isn't only a winner for the Holiday Bowl, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten. It's a winner for the San Diego community. We're very pleased we were able to put this agreement together, and we appreciate the long-term relationships we've had over the years since we began our bowl in 1978 with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten.
Thank you very much, Bruce. As we head into the Q&A session, please be reminded to keep your questions on topic and to identify to whom your question is directed. And with that, we'll launch into that Q&A period.
If you would like to ask a question at this time, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Again, to ask a question, please press star 1. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. Your first question comes from Stephanie Lowe of UT San Diego.
Hi, this is for Bruce Binkowski. Bruce, I was just curious as to the bowls, the Holiday Bowl's naming rights going forward. Are you going to continue your association with Bridgepoint Education, which is this company that has recently, been in the news for sort of having to lay off some of their employees?
We are now in the market for a new title sponsor. Our agreement with Bridgepoint Education has officially ended, so we are now in the market for a new title. We have a lot of opportunities out there. We're talking to a lot of companies, and our conference partners are well aware that we are in the market, and we would hope we would have an announcement on that very soon.
When exactly did the agreement end?
Well, the agreement officially ended after the game, but there was a renewal time. There was a time when they could renew several weeks ago, and they opted not to renew, and so now we are moving forward for a new title.
Okay, thank you.
Your next question comes from Adam Rittenberg of ESPN.com.
For Commissioner Delany, Jim, can you talk a little bit more about the Big Ten selection process and whether there's going to be a tiered system with bowls and teams, or how you guys are going to work with the bowls to create matchups on your side of the ledger?
Right. Well, Adam, our goal was initially to, create a national slate, and we feel like we've taken another step in that direction, and to broaden the group of opponents that we're playing. We think we've done that by going back home to our Pac-12 partner, but also to keep it fresh for fans and for the bowl communities, for our players and coaches. And so, we're working with the bowls to create what I would describe as a process for selection and approval by each bowl, subject to a series of parameters. We're going to really want to have different teams in different bowls. And I think early on in the cycle, you'll see something that resembles the selection process. But as the bowls unfold, you'll see a real focus on getting diversity and freshness. So the way I would describe these two bowls is I think that the Holiday Bowl will be in a top tier, and the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl will be in a middle tier. So that's probably the best way to describe it. We expect to have, 8 or 9 or 10. We're not sure exactly how large our slate will be, but I would describe the Holiday as in the higher tier, the top tier, and the Kraft Fight Hunger in the middle tier. And we haven't quite figured out and drafted all of the agreements, but that's probably the best way to describe it.
And is there a number of tiers that you have in mind for the bowls? And also, will the teams be in certain tiers when you find out the final records of all the teams that are eligible?
Yeah, it's not so much about the teams being in tiers as it is in the bowls being in tiers. And I would say there's probably 3 tiers if we end up with 9 or 10 bowls. And I think that you'll see some Florida bowls and the Holiday Bowl in the top tier, and probably the Pinstripe Bowl and the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl in the middle tier. There may be others. We haven't quite figured it out, but I think there's, generally speaking, 3 tiers, and you'll see teams moving between those tiers. And so you'll learn a little bit more, and we'll learn a little more as we finish up these deals and execute on them. But our goal is to be national, have a national slate, to broaden the group of opponents, and to keep it fresh. And clearly there'll be some bowls that we'll select with our approval in advance, but I think you're going to see a lot of movement by teams among bowls. We're fortunate in that all these are fantastic destinations. They're world-class cities with opponents coming from world-class conferences. So we think they're great brands on our side and great brands on the other side, and together that'll produce great bowl matchups.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Adam.
Your next question comes from Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal.
This is for Jim Delany as well. Adam kind of addressed what I was getting at, but essentially it's a system where you're trying to keep it fresh. The tiers won't matter as much as time goes on because it'll be more of an emphasis on keeping it fresh. Is that fair to say that
I think that's fair to say. It is. In the final analysis, we'll have to take responsibility because we do have approval rights, but our teams understand what we're trying to accomplish. There are lots of opportunities to play in these bowls. The minimum level is bowl eligibility, and then at the top level is not losing a game, and in between there's a lot of ground. But we think that our fans live in the East and the Midwest and the West and the South, and we recruit in all these different areas. So, our goal is to keep it fresh for the bowl community. We've had almost 20 years of bowl tie-ins. We think we know the positives, and there are many, to be able to develop relationships with another conference in a key community. But it's also counterproductive to send teams to the same region or the same bowls in consecutive or 4 times out of 5 years. So, in each of these areas, we're going to be focused on moving teams. And as I said, who wouldn't want to be in San Francisco, and who wouldn't want to be in San Diego? These are fabulous trips to great venues.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Patrick Finley of Arizona Daily Star.
Hello. This question is for Larry Scott. Larry, I know that you guys in the Big Ten had tried to do a regular season matchup that just didn't work out. Strategically, was there an emphasis on on teaming with the Big Ten in postseason events, and did one have any effect on the other?
Not directly, but our conferences have a tremendous affinity for one another. Got obviously tremendous tradition playing each other in the Rose Bowl, and we have looked for ways to play each other more often in a more systematic, formalized way. But even informally, our schools like to play against each other. If you look at the teams that our schools play top tier conference out of conference competition against in football in particular, you'll see a lot of Pac-12, Big Ten matchups early in the season. So there's a tradition there. There's an affinity there. We had some communication during this process, but each conference goes about this process independently with the bowl. So I would describe it as something we were warm to, we welcomed, but it does not directly tie to what we've tried to do and what our schools do informally during the regular season.
Is your opinion of slotting teams into bowls, how does it differ from Jim's? You hear Jim stress the idea of, kind of making sure that the same teams don't go to the same games every year. Are you of that same opinion or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think philosophically we look at it in a very similar way. The mechanism that we have is slightly different. It'll be a little bit more traditional in that we start from the perspective of regular season performance and respecting how teams wind up during the regular season. And each of our bowl agreements anticipates a certain team based on their regular season results in the Pac-12. But there are mechanisms, guidelines that we have with each of our bowl partners that enable the possibility of moving around teams to avoid things like a repeat game or, if there's an obvious benefit to a particular team playing in a particular bowl, since most of our bowl games are within our geography, or many are, we've got some mechanisms to do that. But we start with a more traditional approach to a team designated for a particular bowl based on how they do during the regular season, and then we go from there.
Your next question comes from the line of Ron Koichik of San Francisco Chronicle.
I have one for Larry Scott and one for Gary Cavalli. Larry, you kind of addressed it there, but how much of this was the appeal of the tradition of the Pac-12 versus Big Ten, which, at a time when tradition isn't always emphasized in college sports these days, and how much of it is the practicality of TV markets? I see in your press release you guys highlighted that. I'm curious if you could address that.
I'd say, Ron, it's a combination of all those things. A lot that we've always felt that the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl has had a tremendous potential for growth, and we see that growth happening on a couple of different levels. Obviously, the past performance of the bowl has been excellent. As a first-class management team, the experience for our teams has been wonderful. People love coming to San Francisco, and it's a great market. It's a market with great alumni. People like traveling there. And it's a bowl that has been favored by television. We've gotten, great television windows. We've gotten very good ratings. So that's, everything that the bowl's had going for it historically. What we're very excited about was, two primary things. Moving to a Big Ten game is a nice step forward for the game. Playing against a peer conference, a conference that we've got such a tremendous tradition and history with, and a conference that we know has big alumni bases out on the West Coast, and they will travel well to a great metropolitan area like the Bay Area. And you take all those ingredients, and on top, you move to what will be one of the most state-of-the-art facilities, football venues in the country. We'll have a lot of buzz associated with it. There'll be a lot of embedded fan base, season ticket holders there that want to go to this bowl game. There'll be a lot of fan interest in going to a college football game at this new venue. We're very excited about that. We're close to the 49ers organization. We're excited about what they're doing, the combination of what they're doing twinned with the first-class management team at the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl, we think is going to really elevate the experience to a whole different stratosphere. So that's some of what went into our thinking and excitement about this game, why we think it's a real improvement, and why it's moving up our lineup.
Gary, if you could address quickly just sort of the appeal again of the Big Ten tradition and also the significance of moving up in the selection, priority with the Pac-12. How important was that to you in this process?
Well, thank you, Ron. Moving up was critical to us. We've had years when we were sweating every night, wondering whether we were going to get a team. And I started this when we started this game 12 years ago. I had a lot of brown hair, and now I have a little gray hair. I'm looking more like Binkowski every day. So it's definitely something where we wanted to improve our position and be able to know that every year, we're going to get a team with 8 or 9 wins and really be able to present a quality matchup here in the Bay Area. This is a pretty tough market, as you know more than anybody. And I think around the country there aren't very many bowls that are competing with as many professional teams and as many successful professional teams as we are. As far as the Big Ten, they were attractive to us for so many reasons. The conference has some of the top brands in college football, and to have the opportunity to bring teams of that stature, teams of that profile in here, we felt was a unique and a tremendous opportunity for us, particularly going into a bigger stadium where we have more seats to fill with a better team in the Pac-12 matched up against a team from the Big Ten. We just thought that was a win-win. Big Ten schools and Big Ten fans are used to coming out here. They're used to coming to the West Coast for college football games, and many of them have a large alumni base here in the Bay Area. And, of course, for me personally, having worked at Stanford, the Rose Bowl has always been the premier matchup, Big Ten, Pac-8, Pac-12, whatever. And when I was a young buck, I was at Stanford when we beat Ohio State and Michigan in the Rose Bowl, and that was a very memorable experience in my life. So to have the opportunity to put these two teams together in our bowl is just a real gratifying and exciting thing.
Thanks, Gary.
Your next question comes from Brian Bennett of ESPN.
Yeah, I got a couple questions for Jim Delany. Jim, I wanted to follow up just an earlier question that was posed to Commissioner Scott about just having these games. Is it taking any of the sting away from the not having the Pac-12 Big Ten alliance? Does it kind of make up for that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. The Rose Bowl goes back to 1902, and then it was picked up regularly in 1947, and we've worked well together to integrate it with the BCS and now the college football. And as Larry noted, our schools probably play each other as much as any other conferences do in the non-conference, and that goes back a long time. And Larry and I both explored the collaboration. Collaborations don't happen very much because they're difficult, and we had some difficulties on our side. He had some difficulties on his side, and but what it didn't do is it didn't interrupt the communications. It didn't interrupt the desire to create good matchups. I'm a firm believer in partnerships, whether it's a Big Ten ACC Challenge or a Rose Bowl, or bringing people together under the college football playoff. We figured out a way to do things, and we don't really worry about what doesn't happen as much as we worry about what happens. And so, that was a plane that didn't fly. But once it didn't fly, well, I'm on to doing something else, and this is a very good something else. So we're really pleased that it came into focus, and not only are we in great cities and great venues, but also with a great partner conference in the Pac-12.
And my other question was, these are obviously great cities, but it's a far trip for some of your fans. And how important is it to have those alumni in those areas, and how much are you relying on them to be able to come out to these games?
You know what we're fortunate, we have the largest alumni basis in the country, probably of the world, I think. You know, we're probably pushing on 5 million living alums. They're all married to someone, they've got kids, and they're dispersed. The Midwest is a great place to live, but so is the West Coast and so is the Sun Belt. And so I think we've got 300,000 plus alums living on the West Coast, probably 250,000 in the southern third of California, but another very large and significant group in the Bay Area. So I think it's great for our fans, and I think our fans are going to enjoy traveling there too. San Francisco's not a town that we play in very much unless we're playing at Cal or Stanford, and to be able to come there and make plans is, I think, exciting to our fan base.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Kevin Gemmel of ESPN.com.
This question is for Larry, just real quick. Does the rest of the selection order change at all on the bottom half between the Sun, Vegas, and New Mexico?
We're not ready to announce some of our other arrangements. We will shortly. I think what you'll see at the end of the day is, I used the word earlier, we've optimized our lineup. There will be some changes, but I think top to bottom you'll see improvements as evidenced by today's announcement, both Holiday and Kraft Fight Hunger, which is the focus today. You know, we're delighted, but I think you'll see top to bottom, an even more robust bowl slate for us, but not ready to announce those other details.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Your next question comes from Drew Sharp of Detroit Free Press.
Yes, this question is for Jim. Jim, you were saying that you want the bowls for the conference to have a more national feel, more of a national presence. Now, does that mean, is it still a top priority for the conference to maintain a bowl alignment in the Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're hopeful. We're not ready to announce, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to have a good connection in the Midwest. We've got one, obviously, in New York that we've announced, and we've got two out on the West Coast, and we're going to try to be maintaining strong positions in Texas as well as Florida and maybe other places. So we're hopeful, and we're in discussions, and hopefully within weeks, not months, we'll be able to announce the remainder of our slate.
As a follow-up, is Detroit still the number one target?
I would say that we're not ready to announce, but you're in the right area.
So, I mean, but again, in past years, I mean, you guys were affiliated with the Motor City Bowl and Little Caesars Bowl.
Yep.
The Big Ten teams didn't go every year. Is it important that if there is another alignment with a Midwest site, that the Big Ten team is there every year?
What's important is for us to try to put together a slate that makes sense to our schools. And I can't tell you where unannounced bowls will be in our lineup, but let's just say we've had a lot of very good conversations with respect to Detroit, and we're still having those conversations. So my hope is that we'll get to a place where we'll be ready to announce, but we're not at this point.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Drew.
Your next question comes from Bill Rabinowitz of Columbus Dispatch.
Make it easy. My questions have been asked and answered. Thank you.
Your next question comes from Stephanie Lowe of UT San Diego.
Hi, this is for Jim Delany. Jim, you were talking about how, the bowl is trying to freshen and sort of diversify just the conference is trying to freshen your bowl affiliations and diversify which schools go where. But, ultimately, I mean, how do you plan to sort of make it so that the bowls are kind of clear on where and who they can pick in terms of, which bowl picks first?
Yeah, I mean, there will be a selection order, but I think, what we're trying to emphasize, for example, somebody obviously will select first. Well, they may or may not get the team they want because they may or may not have had that team before, or that team may have been in that region 2 years in a row. So there will be a selection order, but what I want to emphasize is we're trying to make sure that there's freshness, that the bowl community is well served, that our teams and our fan bases, I mean, I will tell you that it's hard when a team goes to, say, Florida 5 times in 6 years to get them real excited. If you've been to the Rose Bowl 3 years in a row, we're trying to say maybe San Diego and San Francisco are not the places for you to go in your next bowl trip. So while there will be some selection order, it is going to be heavily influenced by freshness. And therefore, what you may see is teams that have accomplished a lot but have been in a place a lot may not go to that place, even though they may have a higher selection, because we're going to steer them to another desirable bowl, even though that bowl may not have the first selection. So I guess the best way to say it is there are selections, but they're constrained by parameters which are intended to make sure that our teams and our players and our coaches have unique and fresh experiences. I think that'll be good for everybody.
Would it be accurate to say that the Big Ten is going to have some final say in which teams end up going to which bowls, regardless of what the bowls pick?
I would say we'll probably be in agreement more than we're not, but if we're in disagreement, we'll be clear about it. But it'll be a rational disagreement on the basis of a particular team having been in a particular bowl or region more often than we think is healthy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Your next question comes from Angelique Chemgelis of Detroit News.
My question is for Jim Delany, and it was already asked, Jim, but I was wondering, without being obviously too specific, but why is it a positive to have a bowl tie in Detroit?
Well, I think that, first of all, Detroit is a city that has stepped up and wants to be in the bowl world. There are two, FBS conferences in the region, in the MAC and the Big Ten. There are others that recruit in the region, and obviously there's a great facility as well as interested television parties. So when you have two conferences that are there, when you have multiple conferences that recruit there, and you have state-of-the-art facility, you have the potential to put a game together. But still, that means that the game has got to be put together in a market sense so that the attractiveness of the ticket situation, the television situation, the timing of the game, all have to come together for the involved parties to make it happen. And so, we have been in the past, and we're discussing how we do it in the future. There's a new management team that's involved in Detroit now, and I think that's positive. And I know that they've had a variety of discussions with other conferences as well as ourselves. And when we get to the point where we're able to move forward on an announcement, we will. But I think they have, like a lot of cities, the elements that it takes to put on a bowl game. College football has never been more popular. There's never been more bowl games. And it's a very competitive environment. As Larry noted, we ended up together, but the Pac-12 got there by its route, the Big Ten got there by its route, and that's what's happening in each and every one of these bowls. There's got to be a bowl, a television partner, a sponsor, two willing conferences, and a great facility to make it all come together. And that's, I think, in part why you're seeing, announcements which are, a bowl or two at a time, because these things take time to work, and we want to get the information out as soon as we can, and also give each of the bowls their day in the sunlight, because they've worked awful hard to put these things together.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Teddy Greenstein of Chicago Tribune.
Hey, Jim, jumping in here late. There's no talk at all about Soldier Field and trying to get a bowl in Chicago, is there?
Not that I've heard recently.
Okay. That's all I need. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Your final question comes from Scott Zuckerman of Cedar Rapids Gazette.
Yeah, my question's basically for everyone, and that is, amid the excitement of the 14 playoff in 2014, all these new bowl matchups, 14-team Big Ten in 2014, how do you avoid creating the perception that 2013 is a lame duck season, both for the conferences and then for the bowls themselves?
I'll just take a quick shot. I don't think anything is lame duck about it. You know, if the players who are working hard this season, the coaches who are trying to get their teams ready to play, and the fan base, I always find that in August, whether it's the first year of a new BCS or bowl cycle or the year before the college football playoff, people are bursting with excitement and enthusiasm, and we're only in June, but people are already talking to me about the kickoff luncheon in Chicago. So I just think that college football is more popular than it's ever been. People are more passionate. They have stronger disagreements. They love their teams. And I got a lot of problems or a lot of challenges, but getting people excited about the 2013 season is not one of them.
I'd echo Larry. I mean, there's so much excitement and so much to play for our teams. That's probably the furthest concern from my mind. There's so much on the line, and the college football playoff will add a dimension that fans are excited about, our schools are excited about, but there's nothing about 2013 that's got an asterisk from my perspective.
This is Gary Cavalli. I would just add one thing. I mean, most of the recent polls you folks have seen conducted by ESPN or Scarborough or all the different organizations have shown that college football is now essentially tied with Major League Baseball as the second most popular sport in America in terms of fan interest, behind only the NFL. So if anything, you know, college football interest is growing exponentially, and I think everybody's certainly looking forward to the new structure next year. But every season is its own individual entity, and this year there's so much to look forward to. I don't think any of us are worried about it.
Yeah, and I'll just agree with what everybody's saying. This is Bruce Binkowski. I've been in this business now for 36 years, and when you get into the fall and the speculation about who's going to be playing in what bowl game, all the media, everybody will be focused on what's happening in 13. So I don't think there's any lame duck to the 2013 year. And then once we get past 2013, we'll focus entirely on 2014 and our new agreements.